Hi, I'm Dee Barnes, and welcome to a special edition of The Frequency. Today, we're going to continue our conversation with the amazing Drew Dixon. You may be familiar with her name, but you definitely know her work. In part one, we talked about how the producer, writer, and activist is the creative driving force behind Method Man and Mary J. Blige. I'll Be There For You, You're All That I Need to Get By, as well as Estelle's American Boy, featuring Kanye West. We also discussed how she is one of the 20 women who have gone public with their allegations of sexual assault and harassment by Def Jam co-founder Russell Simmons. Today, we pick up on our interview discussing the HBO documentary On the Record, which featured their stories. Back right here in The Frequency with my guest, Drew Dixon, and we were just talking about the documentary that she was in, On the Record. And I was asking you about pushback because I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding it, and I wanted to get your feelings on the controversy, and also how do you feel about it after the fact that everything's out in the open now? Like, do you feel free?
I do feel free. I feel free because I just, I grew up, I played basketball in high school and middle school and elementary school. And I learned that if you're planted, and they just run into you, that's a charge.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So some of it was fear. Some of it was like I was planted like a petrified tree. But some of it I just was planted because I knew I'm telling the truth. And all of this chaos around me is going to subside. And it was more chaotic than I even feared. But I just decided to just stay still and hold my ground.
Right.
I popped off a little too much on Twitter than I should have, but I'm doing better these days.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But it was terrifying. I mean, honestly, I was afraid to be a part of this documentary. I was afraid to say Me Too, because I understand the significance of Russell Simmons in our culture. I acknowledge and appreciate his significance. There's no way you can tell the story of the last 50 years of hip hop without including him as an architect and seminal, feature of the story. And so I understood how hard it would be for people to accept the fact that he is a rapist and, sort of like Bill Cosby. I mean, another just heartbreaking loss for the culture.
Exactly.
And so, Black people don't have that many heroes to spare. Not many of us get to the level of a Bill Cosby or Russell Simmons. So Harvey Weinstein is huge, but there are a lot more Harvey Weinsteins. And
exactly.
When we lose some of the significance, it's a blow to the culture.
It really is. But wait, I need to interject the fact that there's the dynamic of taking a Black man down.
Right.
And then we become the villains.
And we're the villains. And it's
we become the villains.
And I knew that would be the perception. I was, I remembered the Anita Hill hearings, and this is a Black man that wasn't even to help Black people. And they were mad at Anita Hill, right? And so this idea that I was going to be perceived as somebody taking down a Black man when all I've ever done in my life is to try to lift us up. I mean, the first record that I helped to make is a Black love song, right? And so I, feared that. And then I was so relieved when the filmmakers told me that Oprah Winfrey had signed on as the executive producer, because I felt I'm safe now. Like, there is no more formidable than Oprah Winfrey. And Gayle King had just recently interviewed R. Kelly, and there was that famous photograph of her holding her position in that chair while he just
rant and raved. Yes.
So poised and dignified. And I was like, I couldn't be in better hands here. Like,
exactly.
Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King collectively are like the dream team. Aligns with this film that is not just about Russell Simmons, and certainly not about me, but is about us as Black women and the way we are so vulnerable in society. And so it was like my exhale moment. You know, I felt like, oh my God, this leap of faith that I took is being rewarded because now Oprah Winfrey is involved. And then when she backed out 10 days before I was supposed to get on a plane with my kids to go to Sundance, it was like one of the most terrifying moments of my life. And I know that sounds dramatic, but honestly, it was.
No.
Like, how did I get all the way out here, like on Front Street, for the floor to come out from under me? I mean, wow, it would have been better if she'd never signed on, because now all of the scrutiny that I feared is amplified like a million times.
Exactly.
Of her stature, and for her to leave, it's almost worse for us.
Did you ever find out why she backed out? Because I'm still confused about that. I'm still
confused about it myself.
And she's never publicly addressed it, and you've never talked to her.
Addressed it. She said that she backed out for creative reasons. Ava DuVernay was quoted in the New York Times article that addressed Oprah's exit from the film, and Ava also cited her own creative concerns about the film, which I was confused by, because I think Ava's real issues seemed to be around the fact that she didn't think it captured hip hop accurately. And we've got Kieran Mayo and Morgan, you know,
right.
I mean, some of the most significant journalists in hip hop. I mean, Dr. Joan Morgan invented the term hip hop feminism, and they looked at the film and they felt good about the film. So that was confusing to me. It's always been confusing to me.
And when the film wasn't about hip hop anyway, it was about a figure in hip hop.
Right.
Who just happened to be. It was about Black women.
And no one.
And then we have the top Black woman back out. I mean, that was hurtful. It's so hurtful.
And she's a survivor, and she is like somebody I have idolized my whole life. I mean, I guess that shows you, don't idolize anyone. Don't have idols, because people
don't have idols.
Humans. And I, you know, what I don't want to do, though, in an environment and in a conversation that's about toxic patriarchy and rape culture, to focus on a woman who disappointed me. Oprah is still a Black woman in America. She is still a survivor in America. She is still someone whose success and impact I admire. And while it was devastating, and it remains devastating to me that she exited, the focus needs to be on Russell Simmons. He is
exactly
here, and I don't think it's fair for the focus to shift from him to her, because she is also, for all of her power and all of her accomplishments, a Black woman in America.
A Black woman in America.
Patriarchy, rape culture, and making a difference. And so it was terrifying, but here's the good news. You know, God's rejection is God's protection. And
amen.
It compelled me to stand there at Sundance and speak out on behalf of the film. It compelled me to speak out on behalf of the film in interviews, like the one I gave in the New York Times right after she exited. And I was just actually lying in the fetal position in my room, like so devastated. But it helped me to find my voice, not just as someone telling my story, but as someone advocating for survivors more broadly, advocating in particular for Black survivors, in particular for Black women and girls. And I don't think I ever would have found my voice, which I later used to join a coalition of survivors that helped to get the Adult Survivors Act in New York passed. I don't think I would have ended up ever being part of that movement if I hadn't been compelled to step forward on behalf of the film when Oprah exited. So I want to thank Oprah Winfrey for helping me to find my own voice as an activist, and I send her nothing but love. And we're all really on the same side here, because it's the toxic patriarchy that makes us all vulnerable. It makes men and boys vulnerable too.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And then it's also too an extra sting when it's a woman that disappoints you like that. I mean, I've had support from women, but I've also had a lot of animosity and criticism from women, especially when I speak my truth. When women speak their truth, they get a lot of pushback. And to me, you know, of course you're going to have men do it, but when I hear a woman choose the side of the abuser or the rapist, it's especially, disappointing. But at the same time, I think about what you said, speaking up for all those other women. Because for me, in my situation, me stepping forward, I wasn't even thinking about the consequences. I was thinking about, oh my God, he needs to be stopped. This has got to stop, because it was happening way too many, to too many people. And I had witnessed some of the violence. I was firsthand right there. So I know I felt like I had to speak up for everybody else who wasn't speaking up. I mean, the only one that had came out publicly was Michelle A.
Right.
And, I was so happy when she did, because, it took years for her to find her voice. And that's the thing. That's why I wanted to have this conversation with you. It's so important about how do women find their voice in a situation like that? Because like you said, it's two different traumas that we're dealing with. So I know for me, like, it was a lot of therapy. It was just, living life, also a mother of two. And I decided to, be stay-at-home mother after, the incident, leaving Pump It Up, and then actually doing a company where we did music videos. So I stayed behind the scenes, right, as opposed to being in the front, because I didn't feel the same way about it, so to speak. Not that I didn't love what I was doing and loved the music or hated the music. I always loved, the culture, even though sometimes the culture doesn't love us back. Up next, we're talking about the Netflix documentary Ladies First, which tells the story of women's influence on hip-hop music and culture. We'll be right back.
President Biden has delivered for Black America. More funding for Black entrepreneurs. Millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowering the cost of medications and the cost of living. Joe Biden is delivering for us, and that's the facts.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause, to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Back right here in the frequency with my guest, Drew Dixon. I wanted to have this conversation with you. It's so important about how do women find their voice in a situation like that? Because like you said, it's two different traumas that we're dealing with. So I know for me, like, it was a lot of therapy. It was just, living life, also a mother of two. And I decided to, be stay-at-home mother after the incident, leaving Pump It Up, and then actually doing a company where we did music videos. So I stayed behind the scenes, right, as opposed to being in the front, because I didn't feel the same way about it, so to speak. Not that I didn't love what I was doing and loved the music or hated the music. I always loved, the culture, even though sometimes the culture doesn't love us back.
It doesn't.
It really doesn't, which brings me to the Netflix.
Yes.
Ladies First.
Black women are crushing it in hip hop right now. Dominating the charts, being the ultimate influences of the culture.
We are winning at once in different aspects. There's so many fire women right now. Like, what?
None of this came easy.
We have come through a lot. We have stood back up, and we'll always keep standing back up.
The beautiful thing about where we are right now, Black women in hip-hop are controlling their narrative in a way we've never fathomed.
celebrate all women because there's space for you.
But we will always be stronger together than we are apart. That's just how it is.
It is incredibly devastating when women are the ones who betray us, when women are the ones who enable our abusers. But it's also incredibly rewarding when women lift each other up in the way that Dream Hampton and the other executive producers of this incredible Ladies First documentary series on Netflix have done. I mean, I am so grateful to Dream and the whole team behind that series for platforming the women in hip hop, for platforming women in hip hop.
Right.
We've been under-acknowledged, undercompensated, undercredited, underprotected, underrespected. In a 4-episode series, we are allowed to take center stage. And, you know, the choice to include you and me.
Right.
And to give us an opportunity to be heard, talking about something beyond our trauma was really powerful choice. And I think an example that I think is groundbreaking in terms of what's possible if journalists and filmmakers and producers and creators and executives have some courage and are willing to be brave and innovative. It's not only, you know, important, it's compelling entertainment. It's powerful. It's good.
It is powerful. But sisterhood has always been powerful for me. And it is good because there's someone watching that, you know, will probably take that first step. There's someone watching that would probably, you know, find their voice. And I like what you said too about the fact that we got to not just talk about our trauma, but talk about our accomplishments, because for too long, you know, the erasure was there. I knew all about your work, but I had no idea who you were. And that is just mind-boggling to me. Like, and it's some of my favorite things, you know, Aretha with
the
Lauryn Hill, you know, A Rose is Still a Rose, one of my favorites. The Show soundtrack. You put together an entire soundtrack, and I'm pretty sure you did it by yourself, correct?
By myself. I just called my favorite artist. I wanted to represent hip hop regionally, different genres.
Right.
So just text me. I wanted to represent different genres of hip hop, different regions of hip hop. So I just called my favorite artist and said, "Hi, my name is Drew from Def Jam. I'm a Bone Harmony song. Can you send me anything you may have overcut for your album?" Essentially, everything on that soundtrack was like overcut from another album, except for How High, which was the original, which was recorded originally as the single for that album.
And but everybody from all over the country, like West Coast. I mean, didn't you like have like an early Tupac on there?
Yeah, I had My Block, Easy Mo Bee's production of My Block. I got that on there. Yeah,
amazing. Outkast.
Oh my God, that almost got lost. I had to climb over the counter at the FedEx Depot on 34th Street to find My Block by Tupac because my intern sent it via FedEx instead of shipping it to Unique Recordings for Easy Mo Bee to do his final mix. But yeah, like I found it. I found it on the album. It's because I was like, I got to go back there. You guys are not hearing me. I was like, excuse me. And so, you know, that's how that record, My Block, got saved and survived and made its way onto that soundtrack. So yeah, I mean, I called people, I moved mountains to get all those records done. I had all these records, I had all the cassettes in my office, but I didn't have permission to use any of them. So I knocked on the door of Frank Cooper, who was the head of business affairs at Def Jam at the time. And I was like, yo, we got deals. And he was like, well, I don't have any control over what the priorities are. So then I went to Leor's office, Leor Cohen's office, and I just started playing him the songs. He's like, okay. Wow, this is dope. He called Frank. Frank hired an attorney named Gary Watson who came in, and we quickly got all those clearances. And a lot of that involved me being conferenced in with like Suge to get the Snoop interlude cleared. Or, you know, getting Eazy-E to meet Run DMC for the first time so he would clear the Bone Thugs and Harmony song, like conferencing Russell in with people to get like trades done, you know, to get the sample cleared on Every Day It Rains for Mary. I did all that. You know, I found the records, I sequenced it. I put the interludes in that I pulled from the audio of the film. And then I worked with Frank Cooper, Gary Watson, and frankly, Russell to get all the clearances done. So
That's amazing. And I think about me with Pump It Up, like the credit that I didn't get. I mean, I didn't have the final say, but I had so much influence, and I would pull the artists. I mean, the only reason that I had that episode with NWA on there, which caused all of the commotion, was because I asked them personally. I called them up and said, hey, I would love to have you guys on the show. And they, yeah, for you, Dee, we'll do that.
Wow.
It's amazing when I think back on it now, like the things that I did, like I should have had an executive producer credit on the show, but instead at the end of every show is host. And then when they took my suggestions for guests and things of that nature, but when it came to something important, the pushback was, you're being emotional, you're just a woman.
This happens to women all the time. I mean, don't get me started. Yes. Kamala Harris, they act like she's not doing anything as vice president. It's like, first of all, ever paid attention to what a vice president was doing? And Kamala is doing all of the things, but it's erased. Like, people love to just minimize the contributions of Black women. And we have to speak up. That's why, again, Ladies First is so important, because if we don't insist on giving each other credit, no one else is going to do this for us.
Exactly.
And, so it happens to us all the time, where we do all of this labor, all of this intellectual property that we contribute or usher in or facilitate. And then we're just, like you said, you were the host. I was maybe the A&R person, but not even always that. I was often just completely erased. And that's got to stop, because there are financial implications.
Right.
So many implications, like where we should be today. And so many of the women in Ladies First, where they should be compared to where some of these men are.
Exactly.
For abusers. I mean, one thing that was pointed out to me by one of the directors of On the Record, who's focused on sexual harassment and abuse in many films, is that sexual harassment in the workplace may not just be about sexual predation. It might also be like a way that these men hold stars who are women back and keep us from their peers and their competition. And that's why we've got to talk about it.
Yeah, it's a power dynamic, most definitely. It's a power dynamic. I mean, when I think back on the violence from Andre, I think about all of the women that he, especially the ones that were involved in music. I'm speaking specifically of Michelle A., Terry B., myself. It was about keeping us down. It was about keeping us in control.
That's right.
So to speak, which is insane. But we're going to fast forward now, because we have all of that in. We're going to fast forward to that now. When we come back from the break, I want to talk about what you have, what's in your future. Okay. We got to talk about that, because now we turn in a new page. We'll be back, you guys, on The Frequency right here on the Black Star Network.
On his first day in office, with the country in crisis, President Biden got to work for us. Cutting Black child poverty in half, more money for Black entrepreneurs, millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowered the cost of living and prescription drugs. But there's more to do. He gets it, because we all deserve dignity, safety, respect, and a chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Back right here in The Frequency with my special guest, Drew Dixon. And now we're talking about our future. What's happening now, Drew? Like, what do you still have the love and the passion for music? Do you want to get back into doing more music? What direction do you want to go in?
I love music. I'm always going to love music. It's kind of like, you can't turn off the button. It's just, that's a part of who I am. That's how I'm made. I am making new music again. I'm sort of returning to my original pre-hip hop love, which is alternative, sort of pop folk music. I think maybe hip hop's a little too painful for me at the moment. So I'm working with artists that I discovered right after the New York Times article came out. So I met with them in January of 2018, right after the New York Times article came out. And they are incredible. She's a singer-songwriter who plays the guitar and the piano. Her compositions are absolutely incredible. She's actually in on the record at the very end. Her name is Ella Wild.
What's her name?
Ella Wild.
Ella Wild, okay.
Wild, W-Y-L-E. And Ella just signed a publishing deal with Sony Music Publishing. So shout out.
Did you facilitate that deal?
Yes.
Nice.
I connected with my old friend John Platt at Sony Music Publishing, who connected me with Walter Jones. And Walter Jones really loves Ella's music. And so thanks to John Platt and Walter Jones, shout out to both of you guys. I appreciate you so much for the opportunity. Ella Wild is now a Sony Music songwriter. Ella is also enrolling in the fall at the Clive Davis Institute at NYU, where I am honored to be on the advisory board with some of my heroes like Suzanne DePass and Sylvia Ronan and Michelle Endegocello. Some of my heroes are on that board with me, so it's an honor part of it. And Ella is going to the Clive Davis Institute in the fall, and I am executive producing an album with her now. And we are actually developing a musical based on our story of helping each other to unlock our power through music. How she brought me back and how I helped her to realize that her potential was even greater than perhaps she realized. So we're writing a musical together.
Oh, that's amazing.
About that. And I'm also developing a podcast. I call the genre Hip Hop Hitchcock.
Yes. Let me tell you, I got to jump in. I'm very, very excited about that.
Thank you.
Let me pitch myself real quick. I want to be one of your guests. I really want to talk about my work on the movie Dr. Giggles. It was a horror campy movie. So I would love to come on and talk about that and, dedicate it to the late Manny just passed away. He was the director of that.
Love to hear more about this. My podcast, however, is scripted. It's not an interview show.
Oh, okay.
Episodes that
I'm pitch myself first.
That's cool because maybe we can work it in.
Okay.
But it's 8 episodes that I wrote 8 scripts and they're about 20 minutes long.
Wow.
And it's a mystery involving women in hip hop. And the disappearance of a hip hop singer. And as we solve the mystery of her disappearance, we realize that effectively many other women in hip hop have metaphorically disappeared. So it's a mystery, but a mystery with a message. Yes. And I am putting that together now. And I'm so excited about that. The one thing I didn't even realize, but it was pointed out to me that podcasts are not struck in the WGA and SAG strikes because they're just not like film or television. They're not part of that strike. So I am hoping that I can get this made while some of my favorite actors are available and show the studios that it's possible to create great content without them. So I would love to get this made. I've reached out to a few actors who I really think would be ideal for these roles.
Oh, this is amazing.
Who's going to direct with me. And I'm just so excited about this. So I had a whole different other concept in mind, but this is amazing. It's a mystery. It's like a radio mystery. Like you're like, oh my God, what's happening next? So
I love it.
That's what I'm working on, my Hip Hop Hitchcock podcast. And I'm working in this musical with Ella Wild. And I'm working in music with Ella Wild as well. And I have a few other things that I'm working on. I'm writing a memoir. I actually had started one and I kind of decided to start all over again because I'm so much stronger now than when I started this project. So I am working on a memoir. I might do an audio book where I just tell stories about my career in the music industry because
you have to do that. That right there, that's it. You have to do that because the fact no one can tell your story better than you. That's number one. And the fact that you always have to, or we as women, Black women, always have to fight for our legacies. Like you putting that down, that would be, I need that. We need that. The culture needs that.
I want to shout out Jazzy Bell and her podcast, Women in Hip Hop, because
I did watch that. Yes, I watched it.
It was so
amazing.
nice to be asked about the records I helped to make. And
Exactly.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Women in Hip Hop. I'm your host, Jazzy Bell. And today we are here with the icon, darling. That is right. We are here with the legend, the trendsetter, the architect herself, the one and only Nisa Hilton. Hi, Mama.
That's why I wanted you on today, just to talk about all of that, especially your accomplishments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm probably going to do that. And I'm just sort of coming out of, retirement, after 5, almost 6 very painful post-Me Too years. I have to be honest, it's been a very tough transition to sort of unearth myself from the shadows where I was living my life, where I said Me Too. And to go through the pain and the blowback of coming forward to get to the part where I feel like I'm finally on the other side of coming forward. Mm-hmm. And my oldest kid, I have 2 kids, she's going to college in a week.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
I have a lot more bandwidth for the first time in like 15 years. So I'm hoping to do a lot of things that I, believe are going to be exciting and impactful and hopefully dope. Mm-hmm.
President Biden has delivered for Black America. More funding for Black entrepreneurs. Millions of new good-paying jobs. He's lowering the cost of medications and the cost of living. Joe Biden is delivering for us, and that's the facts.
Back right here in The Frequency with my special guest, Drew Dixon. She's a former A&R director, and she's behind some of the most iconic music collabs you have heard. How do your kids feel about your career, or do they just look at you as mom?
They mostly just look at me as mom. They hated the New York Times article. I mean, they've never read the article. They've never seen on the record. Obviously, it's very painful for them to even contemplate the things that have happened to me.
Right.
And they were like hiding in their bedrooms for like 2 years while I was being filmed for the documentary. And so that wasn't their favorite. Mm-hmm. And I think the first time, though, that they started to feel proud and realizing the significance of my decision to come forward and even the significance of my career was Sundance. So that's why it was so devastating.
Right.
I was backed out 10 days before I was supposed to get on a plane with my kids. I almost canceled bringing them because I realized it was going to be this controversial thing, not this celebration of this movie finally coming out. But I'm glad I didn't cancel. They came. They didn't come to the premiere or the screenings. I told them, you guys have one job. I'm going to be busy doing like interviews and stuff and like fighting for this film to find a new distributor. What I want you to do is run around and get swag. Y'all enjoy your brought a friend. Right. And I think the first time my kids sort of got it was when somebody came up to me and started crying in Park City on Main Street.
Wow.
Thanking me because she'd just seen the documentary. And I think since then my kids are starting to realize that I'm doing something important. I'm making a difference. And they're starting to realize some of the records I helped to make. Like now my daughter's like, oh, there's so many songs on Glee that you have A&R credits on. Like The Boy Is Mine. And oh my God. And
that's amazing.
They're starting to realize their mom might be sort of cool. Like maybe a little.
Right. My children it's an interesting dynamic with I have 2 daughters. And unfortunately, the oldest one was acutely aware of my situation. Like it was one of the things I talk about because I'm also working on a memoir, and I just have to share the story with you. Yeah, right. And I'm glad too that it didn't come out when it, years ago, because there's so much more that I can add in when we're talking about the healing. But my oldest daughter was about 5 years old when they released that Eminem song, the Guilty Conscious song. And I remember being in the car with her, and it came, she's in a car seat, and it came on the radio, and I'm like fumbling and driving, trying to change the channel. And she heard the line, and I, turned the channel, and then she's like, Mom, why are they talking about slapping you? Because she was very aware that Dee Barnes, thank you. And so I pulled over, tears, because I've got to explain to my child, so I'm trying to keep it together. And that was like the first time that, I had to deal with that with her, and she was 5. And then you fast forward to 5 years later, and she's on the internet trying to defend me at 10. So my daughters were exposed. Well, my oldest one was exposed to it very, very young, and then the younger one, didn't catch on till she was much, much older, like maybe 11, 12, 13. I was just mom and dad. I mean, even right until everything that was happening with Straight Outta Compton movie when that came out, I put an op-ed out in Gawker, and I, talked about what was missing in the movie. And, my daughter was like, I know what's missing, dinner. She was like, she didn't want to hear none of that. She was like, where's dinner, Mom? So they both handle it, in a different way. But I know it's very challenging being a mom, being in the industry, just in general, being a mom, being a Black woman and raising kids.
I know this is a little dark. I don't want to end on a dark topic.
No, we're not. We're not going to end on the dark.
Sinead O'Connor, and we lost her right after a year, I think, after she lost her child.
After her son, exactly.
And if you don't think that being a silence breaker takes a toll on the children of people who speak out and stand up to powerful abusers, you are mistaken.
Right.
It takes a toll on the silence breaker. It takes a toll on everyone in their lives, and in particular, children. And who knows what the trajectory of Sinead O'Connor's child's life would have been if his mother hadn't been, I believe it was her son, right?
Right, it was her son. He was 17. He was 17.
To carry that, and the fact that she wasn't even sort of given grace after the entire Catholic Church was exposed for exactly what we accused them of, is just a travesty on our part as a society.
Absolutely.
And so I want to acknowledge anybody out there who is speaking up and speaking out against powerful forces and abusers and abusive forces and institutions that enable abusers. You are not alone. Give yourself space and take care of yourself. And, I hope the people around you are lifting you up and are helping to lift up your kids if you have kids, because it's really tough. It's a lifelong price that you pay for being a victim of abuse and then for speaking out about it. And
absolutely.
I'm so sorry that your children are having to carry it in addition to the way you are having to carry it. And I hope that we get to hear your story and read your story in your memoir, Dee. And
thank you.
Where is the biopic? Where is
I'm really not into biopics, that's but documentaries I'm definitely into, because being a journalist, exactly, and I documented it, and I documented a lot of Pump It Up, footage that hasn't even been seen yet, and photography, because that was my passion too. But I have to
work on that.
Yes, right. I have to give you your virtual flowers, because I just want to thank you for your contributions to the culture. Thank you for your bravery, your courage, just, your creativeness, your just dopeness, your swag, that crown on your head, because you're amazing, Drew. And I love you. I love you.
Thank you for surviving. I want to say this. I sometimes say this when I talk. We call ourselves survivors because not all victims do. So thank you, Dee, for surviving. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for amplifying the culture before anybody thought it would take it this far. Thank you for giving me
thank you.
Inspiring me. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Drew, so much. Well, that's it, you guys. I told you, another, amazing conversation, homegirls and hand grenades, yo. We blowing up the spot right here on the frequency on the Black Star Network. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you all for watching our 2-part interview with the amazing Drew Dixon. I encourage you all to check out the documentary On the Record on HBO Max. For the Black Star Network and the Frequency, I'm Z Vaughn. Catch you next time.